Hold on, what did you just say about Trump?
I said, Trump's a fucking liar. Inflation's going up. Gas prices hasn't really come down that much. Eggs, that's the funny one. The eggs. I'm mad. And I'm a MAGA man. Okay? I don't see anything he's done.
So is it safe to say that the illusion has faded?
I think it has, yes. You know, I was for him because, you know, everything he said, you know, he played right into my hands. He just told us everything we wanted to hear. That's what he did. I can't even stand to look at him because, you know, he's just he's a con. He's a flat ass, nothing but a fucking con. You know, they all the right side, they say, oh yeah, the Biden side was so bad. Well, what's so good about the right side? He brags about doing something with our economy, but I haven't seen anything happen yet. That big beautiful bill is going to add, they say $2.5 trillion. It's going to add about $4 trillion to the debt. The big beautiful bill. Oh, what a joke. Remember what happened in the 80s with trickle-down economics? Yeah. The filthy rich got richer, and us guys that worked for a living paid more taxes. I'm disappointed for sure. I'm real disappointed.
Trump just said Ukraine can win. In a Truth social media post, you gotta read this because this is the first time we're hearing something like this from Donald Trump, and it seems extremely promising. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Wow, this is massive, but he doesn't stop there. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what's really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed, and all the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine will be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Ending with, Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all. Let me know what you think about his comments in the comment section below. I'll be sure to keep you updated, so please do share my videos and follow me for more.
Remember those God Bless the USA Bibles that this guy was selling for $60 a pop that included a copy of the US Constitution and other founding documents from our nation's history? Would you believe me if I told you they left out entire sections of the Constitution to paint a picture of America where slavery never happened and women never gained the right to vote? Because they did. The version of the US Constitution included in these Bibles still contains the Three-Fifths Compromise. You know, the one that declared black people only amounted to 3/5 of a white person, despite the fact that that compromise was explicitly removed from the Constitution in 1868 with the passage of the 14th Amendment. And speaking of amendments, they also intentionally left amendments 11 through 27 out of their Christian nationalist Bible entirely. Not only does this mean that they have omitted the rights of black and brown people to participate fully in our democracy, they also left out women's right to vote, which was famously brought to us by the 19th Amendment. But perhaps the most telling omission of all, at least in my opinion, was their decision to omit from his branded Bible the 12th, 20th, 22nd, 23rd, and 25th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, because those 5 amendments are where our nation's founders laid out how the process of electing our nation's leader is supposed to go, along with parameters around how long that leader gets to serve and how that leader can be removed from office if they are found to be a danger to our country. None of this was accidental, although I'm sure they'll claim it was, if they ever decide to acknowledge the issue at all. They'll likely blame it on printer error, but that will be a lie. Just one more untruth in a litany of untruths from a group of people attempting to rewrite both history and current events in real time. And unless more people start paying attention and speaking up about this, they are going to get away with it, and our democracy will not survive.
So I'm really sorry to be delivering more bad news. I really am. Every time this administration does something to distract the world, like the latest being this Tylenol joke, something else is happening they don't want us to know. And the research from Money Talk News, the economists from Money Talk News have just released their very dire economic data. So Doge laid off 287,000 people. Okay? American companies have already in 2025 announced 744,308 job layoffs. Okay? Just in the first half of 2025, these are the highest layoffs since the pandemic. Major sectors hit include retail, technology, media, and nonprofits. Overall, there's been a 220% jump in layoffs compared to this time last year. While the unemployment rate is at 4.2%, considered low, the number underneath that is disturbing, because 34%, a record-breaking 34% of those employed today are considered functionally unemployed, meaning they are working for poverty wages and SHIP benefits. Highest number in the history of the United States. So that unemployment number that the administration is boasting about, low employment numbers, don't let them gaslight you. And more bad news. They are expecting 480,000 more Americans to lose their jobs by the end of this year. And folks, there's only like 3.5 more months left. Tariffs are estimated to cost the average family, now that they're all really kicking in, a net income loss of $2,300 by the end of this year, as tariffs hit their highest since 1935. Additionally, things like leather goods and shoes and handbags are expected to see a rise in price of 37% because of the tariffs, clothing 35%, vehicles 12%, or roughly $5,000 per new car, and metal goods are expected to increase by 36%. Low-income families will be bearing the brunt of all of this, as their disposable income is virtually going to disappear under the Trump administration's Trump session. And MAGA, that's a lot of you folks. Now I want you guys to keep all of that in the context. All these layoffs, families who have family members that are not bringing in an income and can't find a job, because the new job creation under the Trump administration is some of the lowest ever. In addition, they're going to be hit with these higher costs. In addition, once the big, beautiful bill portion kicks in, where you have to be employed to get Medicaid, but people can't find jobs to get that Medicaid coverage. So we have that to look forward to in the next upcoming months. This is fucking horrible. You know, I guess the only people that aren't going to be affected by this are the ones that are going to be raptured tomorrow. Yeah, the Trump supporters that are going to be raptured tomorrow. They're the only ones skating free out of all this. Anyway.
Trump just wrapped up his speech at the United Nations. I mean, just look at him right here. He looked awful. It was one of the most bizarre and disastrous speeches I've ever seen him give, or frankly, anyone give. And that's saying a lot. Donald Trump first couldn't get up the escalator because the escalator stopped right as he was walking up to it. And then the teleprompter shut down right before he was set to give his speech. Who's ever behind that? Well done. Well done. Just watch what happened at the escalator first. Here, play this clip.
You're going to push Zelensky for peace, President Trump.
President Trump.
Right, then going into Donald Trump's speech right here, Donald Trump starts talking about, this is in his speech, he goes, Donald J. Trump, a real estate developer, wanted to develop this very land. How utterly embarrassing. Here, watch what went down. This is for real here.
Hi, I worked in conservative media for 8 years, and working there for so long and seeing how they operate turned me liberal and then eventually turned me leftist, and I quit my job last week. Yes, I know I have a sunburn. Don't talk about my sunburn, okay? I've got it covered. I know I should have quit sooner, but after September 10th, everything escalated so much, and I ended up quitting on the spot Monday morning by responding to a company-wide email from the CEO, but that's another story. Anyways, there's some things about the conservative media industry that you should understand if you're going to continue to consume it. You're being propagandized and you're being exploited. Even in normal times, there's two goals that conservative media has for how they want their viewers to feel. So that first goal, like I mentioned, is that propagandizing factor. They want you to be so scared of people and things that aren't that scary, like trans people, black people, Muslim people, immigrants. There's no such thing as a demographic of people that commit zero crime. Every group of people that you encounter is going to have a few shitheads in them. It's a fact of nature. It's inevitable. So when a member of one of these communities inevitably commits a crime, they're going to elevate that. They're going to make it look like it's a chronic problem when statistically it really isn't. And I don't want to hear anything about 13% of the population, meaning the black community, committing 50% of the crimes. It's demonstrably false. The only reason that the numbers are higher at all with black people is because their neighborhoods and communities are over-policed. Sometimes they'll just make shit up, like the Haitian people eating people's pets. Like, that just wasn't happening, but it doesn't matter that it didn't happen because they propagandized you all into believing it. It is designed to scare you and to make you look to them, to their network for comfort. They strategize about what to make a big deal out of next to whip up the base. That is the first goal. The second goal is to get the viewers excess money by any means necessary. Have you ever noticed on conservative platforms how like half the ads are for like really scammy products? Trump shoes, Trump coin, supplements that don't work, the world's shittiest pillow, those kinds of things. The reason they try to sell that shit to their viewers is because they know they've already tricked them into voting against their interests. So they figure, why not trick them into buying a shitty Trump teddy bear too? It's shameless and it's obvious. Pay attention to what you're seeing. Pay attention to what they're telling you. Think about what they have to gain from making you hate your neighbor instead of paying attention to the fact that you can't afford your rent, you can't afford a vacation, you can't afford your medicine. Pay attention. Wake up. It's so bad. Listen to me, okay? I was in this. I was inside for 8 years. You are getting scammed. You are getting conned.
Yeah, so Jimmy Kimmel's coming back tonight. You can click on that comment and watch a video that I made about that this morning. It's Tuesday morning. And, you know, the more I've been thinking about it, I think Jimmy Kimmel should get his writers together today, and that they should write the series finale of the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and Jimmy Kimmel should come out and go out in a blaze of glory, and at the end of it, he should quit. He's like, I'm not going to work for this company that is going to bend over for an authoritarian president and fire me for shit that I didn't even say. And so I'm going to go work for somebody else or do my own thing. And my next project is going to be one that values the Constitution and values the First Amendment and stands up to authoritarian bullshit. You know, the post where this comment came from, I was reading from an article where it's like, oh, Jimmy Kimmel has the opportunity to be the bigger person and show empathy and grace. Fuck that, man. Donald Trump is trying to be a dictator, and he's trying to eradicate the First Amendment in the United States. That is not a circumstance for showing grace or empathy. That is a situation for an absolutely enormous go fuck yourself. And that is exactly what is called for tonight. But yeah, I think Jimmy Kimmel's got an opportunity to go out with a bang and make tonight his last episode ever for ABC and the Disney company, because ABC and Disney and Disney CEO Bob Iger, whose wife runs some foundation or whatever that puts on presentations about the importance of the First Amendment and free speech, he should shove this last episode so far up their asses that they feel it for years. And he's got the ability and the talent and the staff to do that in a way that is forceful, emphatic, crystal clear, and funny. And that is the opportunity that Jimmy Kimmel has tonight. He has the opportunity to put his boot so far up Donald Trump and Brandon Carr's asses, it's not even... I really hope he takes advantage of this and does this. Makes tonight his last episode as a giant fuck you to Disney, ABC, Donald Trump, and FCC Chairman Brandon Carr. I don't know if he will, but I really, really hope that he does. Just shove his entire boot all the way up Donald Trump's ass.
Here's something we all missed, including myself, because we're constantly distracted by this administration. What I am about to show you is a letter that was penned by Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana's 3rd District, and it is addressed to social media CEOs. And what he asks for in it, what he requests, is a massive infringement on the right to free speech. Let me read it aloud to you, and then let's talk about it. By the way, if you want to find the PDF yourself, it is clayhiggins.house.gov. That's where you can find this. As you can see, it is addressed to the CEOs and CTOs of Meta, YouTube, Blue Sky, X, TikTok, and Trump Media and Technology Group. It says, "Gentlemen, thank you for the service you provide to our republic, and may God be with you and your family. America is suffering under the dark weight of horror after the graphic televised murder of a heroic Christian leader, Mr. Charlie Kirk. I ask that you reflect upon your own unique responsibility to participate in the very appropriate legal and constitutionally sound response. Please be advised that your platforms are rightfully expected to expeditiously remove all posts that have celebrated the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. Further, the authors of these posts are to be identified and banned from your platform, as well as any new pages they may create. Gleeful celebration of the heinous murder of an American citizen brazenly published within the public forums of social media is not to be tolerated within the accepted and legal parameters of a free and humane society, and I have initiated a congressional effort to force accountability. If you shield these offenders, Section 230 will not protect your platform from vigorous exposure. I hold the gavel for the Federal Law Enforcement Subcommittee of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and my chair has specific congressional authority over federal regulatory law enforcement. My committee will be a leading force in the righteous endeavor to protect the legitimate free exchange of ideas and opinions, which requires the vigilant maintenance of appropriate behaviors within our publicly accessed social media forums. The reasonable restriction of public statements that lie far beyond the standards of our own society is not an oppression of free speech. It is rather the protection of free speech. Having the will to guard the standards and integrity of the infrastructure that enables the expression of opinion in our public discourse is a crucial responsibility that we must embrace. I am hopeful to receive your full cooperation, and I expect a formal response to this letter of encouragement within 1 business week. Respectfully, Clay Higgins, Member of Congress." And to that I say, Representative Higgins, you posted this on September 25th, 2024. Almost exactly a year ago. You said, "LOL, these Haitians are wild, eating pets, voodoo, nastiest country in the Western Hemisphere, cults, slapstick gangsters, but damned if they don't feel all sophisticated now, filing charges against our president and VP. All these thugs better get their mind right and their ass out of our country before January 20th. So if you can say all of that, which is hate speech, racism, discrimination, stereotyping, and just plain vile, let's be honest, and it is free speech. To be honest, I want you to be able to say that because A, people know what kind of human being you are, and B, if I silence you, then you have the right to silence me. And unfortunately, I have to accept and defend your right to free speech just as much as I accept and defend my own. But then I get to come on the internet and I say, quoting Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda, fools who run their mouths off wind up dead. Okay? That's how this works. So I guess I'm getting banned from TikTok now, which, I expected to have that happen anyway. But for good measure, let's also check out some of your friends, in the political sphere. Stephen Miller reposted not too long ago a literal video of a murder of a 16-year-old girl. The White House itself went ahead and celebrated the blowing to smithereens of a boat that had human beings on board who did not have due process, so we have no real idea who they were, and allegedly narcotics on board. How would you know that? You blew the boat to smithereens. J.D. Vance, our vice president, is just out here literally telling us all how he's making fun of tweets and people and all types of things, which is what I believe Higgins has an issue with, right? Making fun of Charlie Kirk or his death or something like that. J.D. Vance just tells us point blank he is making fun of people and things. And by the way, J.D., if you have to tell us what the joke is about or explain it, it's probably not a good joke. We could make this video like umpteen years long, but let's just round it out with a tweet from the college Republicans at Iowa State from November of 2020, where they said, everyone, you must arm up. Expect these people, aka leftists and liberals, to attempt to destroy your life. The elites want revenge on us. The total hypocrisy of it all. Am I right?
I watched Trump's address to the UN today, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. Normally right here I'd give you the craziest thing he said, but as I go through this, you're going to realize it would have been impossible for me to pick any one thing out. So I'm just going to remind you instead, if at any point you need to pause and go touch grass, I highly recommend you do that. So just to start it off, he immediately bitches about the fact that the teleprompters aren't working, and then later in the speech, he's going to bitch again about the teleprompters not working, and he's also going to bitch that the escalator, I guess, stopped while he was on it, and he said that he would have fallen had he not been in such great shape. This whole thing's basically going to be an attack on the UN, but also on the Biden administration, because right at the beginning, he says basically every problem in the world was caused by the weakness, lawlessness, and radicalization of the previous administration. He then says that a year ago we were dead and now we're the hottest country in the world. He says gas is down, groceries are down. The only thing that's up is the stock market. And then he says that affects everybody in this room, so you should be happy. Remember, he's talking to delegates that represent pretty much every nation of the world. He again claims $17 trillion of investment into the United States. I don't even have to fact check this because on whitehouse.gov, the first thing that you see is a list of investments. You can click on that. It totals up to $8.8 trillion. He makes the claim again that no one has entered the U.S. illegally for the past 4 months, which I will just remind you is a statistical impossibility. And then he says this: if you enter illegally, you are going back to the country you came from, or even further than that, you know what that means. I really don't. He finally gave us the list of the 7 wars that he claims that he's ended, even though the leaders of many of these countries have claimed that he had little to no involvement in that, and many of these ceasefires have already been broken. The list is as follows: Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, Congo and Rwanda, Pakistan, India, Israel, Iran, Ethiopia and Egypt, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. And he says that he saved millions of lives by ending these wars. He said it was terrible that he had to end these conflicts and not the UN, and says that he never even got a phone call from the UN. And then he goes in this long rant bitching about the cost of upgrading the UN building. I guess it was a contract that he wanted back in the 90s or something, and he didn't get it. And he just goes on this long bitching thing about, like, you didn't get the marble, you didn't get the mahogany, you didn't get any of this, and there were massive cost overruns, and I would have done the whole thing for a certain cost and never would have gone over, and all of that stuff. He says he never received credit for the Abraham Accords, and that also everyone is saying that he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, and then immediately starts talking about how no other country in the world could have bombed Iran like he did. He says we can't recognize Palestine as a sovereign state because that would give too much credit to Hamas, and we can never forget October 7th. And then regarding the hostages, he says he doesn't want them back 2 at a time, then 2, then 1, then 3. He just wants all 20 of them back. in a totally not pro-Russian stance. He says that the war in Ukraine should have been over in 2 or 3 days, maybe a week at the most, and that it should have been an easy conflict for Russia to just go in and do their thing. He then says, though, that had he been president, none of this would have happened. Even though he said the war would be over in 24 hours, he says that if Russia is not going to end the war, then we're going to put heavy tariffs on them. So I guess he's going to tax us, the American taxpayers, if Russia doesn't end their war, which makes total sense. And then he claims again that COVID was made in a lab overseas and then released, and then makes a heavy implication that we should just stop research on any biological pathogens or anything like that. Regarding immigration, he says the UN is funding an assault on Western cultures and their borders, and then does this pro-nationalist propaganda shit and says that basically we shouldn't allow people with other customs into our countries. And then just London wants Sharia law because their mayor wants Sharia law, I guess. Here's a direct quote with no context. "I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell." He's talking about the caravans that were coming up in 2016 to completely destroy our country that never actually arrived because they didn't exist. They were just right-wing propaganda the entire time, and says that the road is just littered with dead bodies because apparently it was so hot that people couldn't breathe and they were suffocating from the heat. Now, I don't know if you have a heat stroke and that causes respiratory failure and then you are unable to breathe because of that, if they would count that as suffocation as the cause of death or heat stroke. But to the best of my knowledge, naturally within the climates of the world, air doesn't get so hot that humans can't breathe it and therefore suffocate. At one point, he's trying to say foreign terrorist organization and he can't, so he just skips it and goes to the next line. I guess just to justify the extrajudicial killing of foreign nationals, he says that we lost 300,000 people to drug overdoses last year, which again, that number is between 80 and 100,000, so he's at least tripling that. And he says that each boat that they blow up saves 25,000 American lives, even though he didn't prove that there were drugs on any of those boats or that any of those, if there were, would have led to overdoses. But all of that being said, he says, we've stopped them bringing in drugs by sea. We call them water drugs. As you'll see, this is just the beginning of a long rant he's going to do on renewables, but he says renewables are a joke, they just don't work, and that the wind basically doesn't blow, and that it's so expensive and they keep breaking down and all of that. Anyways, here's a list of types of energy production which are cheaper than coal and oil. Those would be wind, solar, hydro, and geothermal, all much cheaper, and he keeps calling for nuclear, which happens to be one of the most expensive types of energy. He claims China keeps making all these wind turbines, but they refuse to put up any wind farms in China because they just don't work. China is the #1 producer of wind energy in the world, and it's not even close. Regarding wind energy specifically, he says all green is all bankruptcy. I don't know what that means. In the middle of this bitching about climate change, he goes on a weird tangent to say that DC was the murder capital of the US and now it's the safest city in the whole country. And then he says that all of that got accomplished in just 12 days and now people are going out to restaurants again. And he invites these other leaders to come and have dinner with him at a local restaurant in DC. And he says, we won't need armored vehicles. We can just walk there. Back to renewables and climate change, he says that there's a bunch of oil in the North Sea. They just haven't found it yet. And then to prove the point that he only hates wind energy so much because of his golf course in Scotland, he says that the beautiful countrysides of Scotland and England are being destroyed by wind farms going up. He claims in the 1920s and 1930s it was actually global cooling that they were worried about, and now it's changed to global warming, but then he says that sometimes it gets colder, and so now they just call it climate change. All that really is just the updating of a definition because it is more extreme climate extremes that are happening in both directions, causing things like worse hurricanes, but also worse blizzards. So you have to actually update the term to make more sense with what we're actually seeing, which is climate change. But overall, yes, the Earth is getting hotter every single year. He says that climate change is the greatest con job to ever happen to the world, and then he says that the carbon footprint is a hoax. The carbon footprint is just an idea of how much carbon do you use compared to others who are also outputting carbon. It's not it's just an idea. He does not understand the basic concepts of this. He talks about his greatly selling hat, the Trump was right about everything hat, and then claims that he was right about everything, except I guess being able to end the war in Ukraine in one day and being able to persecute all of his political enemies and being able to get the cost of groceries and gas down, being able to reduce the cost of energy in 12 months by 50%. So yeah, as he's just lying in front of all of these representatives to world leaders, he's just saying that he was correct about everything. This is just, if you know anything about currents and how big the Pacific is, this is really hilarious. He says that Asia, not a specific country, Asia dumps most of their garbage directly in the ocean, and then in 1 to 2 weeks, it's floating past LA and San Francisco. Does he know how big does he know what currents are? No, he doesn't know what any of those things are. He says again, you're not allowed to say coal without saying it's clean, beautiful coal, and then says that we have more oil than any country in the world. Just a reminder, here are countries who have larger oil reserves than the United States has. Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, UAE, Iran, Kuwait, Iraq, Russia, and Canada all have more oil reserves than the United States. He says that Brazil is being tariffed because they're censoring American free speech. I don't know how that is. I'm doing all the free speeches right now. He also says that as president, he will always defend the rights of American citizens. Unless you're a woman, disabled, queer, black, brown, trans, as long as you're not part of one of those groups, your rights will be definitely protected. And then to sum it all up, he says that Christianity is the most persecuted religion in the entire world. They just always have to be a victim because they are such betas. I honestly wasn't sure I'd get that all done in 10 minutes, but since I did, there's a possibility I will watch the autism speech thing today and also report on that. But I do have some people to thank. This person says, my son is a history/international relations major at university right now, so I've ordered copies of both of these books for him as well from Amanda. They sent me The Spy and the Traitor, and one day everyone will have been against this. They also said to me, I honestly don't know how you watch/read all of this without going insane, but I'm thankful that you can. For the rest of us who can't, thank you. You provide a way for us to stay informed. Also from Amanda, thank you for the books, Amanda. This person says, being a refugee from the Soviet Union obviously meant I had to get you this book. Thank you for the hard work you do. Absolutely love watching videos. That book is about Stalin. 1 second. Okay, that book is called The Court of the Red Tsar. This person says, his life was inspiring and enjoy the read and the new addition to your book sale from Tammy S. They sent me the book Einstein by Walter Isaacson. And finally, I'm proud to be one of your 10%. Thanks for your commitment to keeping us informed. Happy reading from Linda C, aka @catlady_Linda. They sent the book Against All Odds. Thank you guys again for all the gifts. Someone also sent me the smoking gun, but it just came in the box and there was no note attached to it. So if that was you, feel free to DM me. I would like to thank you for that, but I do really appreciate you guys hanging out. And since this was under 10 minutes, you might get the autism one from me today. I don't have any promises to you, but this is about to end because we're about